At 30,000 feet, something goes wrong, and within seconds, the cockpit fills with tension as the pilot sends a single call.
Mayday, 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 mayday.
Instantly, the radio falls silent, and every signal gives way to one aircraft in danger. It is a word everyone recognizes, yet almost no one truly understands. Why this word, and not something clearer or more technical? To answer that, we have to go back to a time before Mayday ever existed. Before Mayday existed, the world already had a distress signal, and it was called SOS. It looked simple, but it was very clever. In Morse code, it was 3 dots, 3 dashes, and 3 dots again. Even in the middle of a storm, operators could tap it out quickly and clearly. For ships at sea, this system worked almost perfectly because they used telegraphs, not voices. But then something changed. Airplanes began to fill the skies, and pilots were no longer tapping messages. They were speaking through radios, often in noisy, open cockpits where wind and static filled their ears. And suddenly, SOS had a problem. The letter S is a soft, hissing sound, and on early radios, that sound could easily disappear into the noise. A message that was once clear could now become confusing, or even completely lost. Imagine calling for help, but the most important part of your message simply fades away. This turned SOS from a reliable signal into a risky one. Pilots did not have time to repeat themselves or spell things out while facing danger. They needed something that could cut through the noise instantly, something impossible to misunderstand. For the first time, the system that once saved lives was starting to fail. And that is how a small technical problem quietly grew into a serious danger, one that the entire world of aviation would soon be forced to solve. In an emergency, a message is not just information, it is survival. When a pilot speaks over the radio, every word must be heard clearly, because even a small mistake can delay help. With SOS, that risk became very real. The sound of the letter S could fade into static, break apart, or be confused with something else. What once worked perfectly in Morse code now struggled in a world of voices and noise, and there was no time to fix it in the moment. A pilot facing danger could not slowly repeat letters or explain what was meant. There were no second chances, no long conversations, and no room for misunderstanding. Every second mattered, and every unclear sound increased the risk. A signal that was supposed to save lives could now do the opposite. At the same time, aviation was growing fast. More planes filled the sky, more routes connected countries, and more people depended on safe communication. The system needed something better, something designed for this new environment. Not a long sentence, not a complex code, but a single word that could be understood instantly. It had to be short, it had to be clear, and most importantly, it had to be impossible to confuse with anything else. This was no longer just a language problem, it was a design problem. The entire communication system had to adapt to a new reality, where sound, speed, and clarity mattered more than ever before. And somewhere in this growing challenge, one person was given a simple but critical task: find a word that could save lives. The answer did not come from a machine or a complex system, but from a single person asked to solve a simple problem. In the early 1920s, at Croydon Airport in London, one of the busiest aviation hubs of its time, a radio officer named Frederick Mockford was given a task. He needed to find a word that pilots could use in an emergency, a word that would be clear, strong, and understood by everyone who heard it. At that time, most flights from London were heading across the English Channel to France, This created an unusual challenge. The new word could not belong to just one language. It had to work for both English and French speakers, because in an emergency, there would be no time to translate or explain. Mockford looked for something simple, something natural, something already connected to the idea of asking for help. And then he found it in French, Mayday, which means help me. When spoken out loud, it sounded like Mayday. It was exactly what the system needed. The word had strong, clear sounds. The M and D could cut through static and noise. It did not sound like casual conversation, so it would never be mistaken for anything else. And most importantly, it carried a meaning that was instantly understood. By 1927, Mayday was officially adopted as the international distress signal. A single word had solved a global problem. But having the right word was only the beginning, because a word alone cannot save lives unless everyone knows exactly how to use it. At first, Mayday may sound like just a word, but in reality, it is part of a carefully designed system. Every detail around it exists for one purpose: to make sure nothing is misunderstood when lives are at risk. The first rule is simple but powerful. A pilot never says Mayday just once. It is always repeated 3 times. This is called the rule of 3. If the signal cuts out or the radio is noisy, at least one of those words will still get through. It also makes the message stand out so it cannot be confused with normal conversation. Then comes something even more important. The moment Mayday is heard, all other communication must stop. The radio channel is cleared and only the aircraft in danger is allowed to speak. This creates space, removing distractions, so help can be given as quickly as possible.
Air traffic control can hear his cries for help, but the storm rushing through the cockpit drowns out their replies.
But not every problem is the same. That is why there is a hierarchy. Mayday is used only when there is immediate danger to life. For less critical situations, pilots use a different call, pan-pan. This keeps the system organized, so responders know exactly how serious the situation is. There is also a structure to what comes next. After the call, pilots share key details like their position, altitude, fuel, and how many people are on board. Each piece of information helps rescuers act faster and more accurately. This is what makes the system so powerful. It is not designed to sound good. It is designed to never be misunderstood. And that is why, even after nearly 100 years, it has barely changed at all. Today, aviation is filled with advanced technology. Aircraft can send automatic distress signals. Radar can track position in real time. Pilots can even enter a special emergency code, like 7700, to instantly alert control centers. On the surface, it may seem like a single spoken word should no longer be necessary. It is fast, clear, and understood everywhere in the world. No matter the country, the language, or the situation, the moment that word is spoken, the meaning is instantly recognized. There is no delay, no decoding, and no confusion. In a system where seconds matter, that kind of clarity is priceless. More importantly, Mayday does not act alone. It triggers an entire global response system. Air traffic control reacts. Other aircraft clear the frequency. Emergency services prepare to respond. All of this begins with a single word, spoken at the right moment. This is what makes it so powerful. Mayday was not created by accident. It is the result of technology adapting to human limits, language being shaped for clarity, history refining what works, and international systems agreeing on a shared standard. Over time, it became something close to perfect, and that leads to a simple idea. The most effective solutions are often the simplest ones. refined again and again until nothing unnecessary remains. One simple fact at a time, that's how we understand the world. Like, subscribe to Simple Why and tell us your question below. Your why could be our next video.